I want to tell you a little story about an accidental experiment I ran just recently. A few weeks back, I had a fairly minor surgery. With all surgeries, we have to stop supplements a couple of weeks before the surgery, right? So it doesn't interfere with clotting and all of that kind of thing that the surgeons worry about and that the anaesthetists worried about. So as usual, I did that. And I've done this many times over the years with surgeries, but this experiment became really obvious to me as time wore on. And I suddenly had this moment of, oh, I've been here before, but I hadn't recognized the pattern. So let me tell you the story of how I discovered what my hair loss was actually related to. And it wasn't my thyroid, or was it? Okay, so I've had 2 surgeries in the last 6 months. So one in December and one a couple of weeks ago. And in case you don't know my backstory, I lost 60 kilos and this is loose skin surgery. So in December, I stopped all supplementation a couple of weeks before a lower body lift, lower face and neck lift, right? I stopped everything that I was taking, and mostly I was taking ginkgo, vitamin D3, K2, because I eat a high meat-based diet these days, selenium, a couple of things like that. All right, just some basics. Now, I've had thyroid disease for 35 years. So I know my hair very well. I've never really experienced hair loss at the times that people say that you would normally experience hair loss. In 2022, another long story, I had weight loss surgery. In preparation for the hair loss, because you're told that you're going to get major hair loss, I stopped dyeing my hair. I let it go to its natural grey. So this is undyed, natural version of my hair. And I did this to preempt any extra chemicals going into my hair so that I could mitigate the hair loss as best I possibly could. I didn't actually lose any hair after weight loss surgery. Strange, right? So that was fine. All went well. It wasn't until my lower body lift in December and I went off the supplements, and then within, I'm going to say a month, my hair was falling out in droves. And I honestly thought it was because of the fiddling around of the scars around the hairline, and that it was just the stress of that. It didn't let up. It kept falling out to the point that, I started tracking it because it was concerning me, because our hair concerns us, right? I don't know why, it just does. And I kept watching it fall out, fall out, fall out. Then life got back to normal. It started falling out a lot less. And I was like, okay, we're over it now. Whatever that was to do with that surgery, that I hadn't had any problems with the weight loss surgery or even a double knee replacement, I didn't lose hair. And they say any kind of big surgery can cause hair loss. So I was like, okay, we're moving on. We're getting back to normal now. And then in the lead up to this last surgery that I had, and in case you're interested, it was a breast lift and a side lift, I had to stop my supplements again. Almost within the week, my hair started falling out again. And I was like, oh, and because I just started noticing the hairs on the ground again. I was like, oh, hang on a second, because my hair is relatively long. You see long bits of hair here, there, and everywhere, and the grey ones are really obvious on coloured surfaces. So I was like, oh, what's going on here? Then I realised, and this should have kicked in a long time ago, having a naturopathic background and clinical nutrition and all the things, but it just didn't connect the dots. We never connect the dots for ourselves, right? And I suddenly went, oh, hang on a sec, I've stopped my supplements. So which one is at play? Can you guess? Yes, it was the vitamin D3 K2 supplement that was causing the problem. After my first surgery, or after my surgery in December, the lower body lift, it took me ages to go back to my supplements. It was a big surgery. I couldn't exercise for around 8 weeks. There was a lot happening, and it was a really tough thing to get back into my usual routine of taking my supplements and all the things. So I didn't connect the dots very quickly there. This time round, whatever it was made me connect the dots. Probably some vitamin D articles that I've written lately and things like that made me go, hang on a sec. So pretty swiftly after my surgery, I didn't wait, the months that I did from last time. This time, as soon as I was home, straight back into the vitamin D. Within days, literally days, when I would brush my hair, and I would brush my hair over the bathtub so that I could see what was coming out, and I'd empty my brush so that I could track exactly how much hair was coming out. Literally within days of being back on the vitamin D, it just lessened so much. And that's why my hair is so foofy here in Bangkok, because I moved from Australia to Bangkok last year, is because I've got so much regrowth from the December situation. And I just thought, oh, it's the heat here, it's the humidity here. No, it's regrowth. I had a hairdresser finally say to me, no, regrow. And I was like, oh, okay, regrowth. So now I'm like not so worried about seeking out keratin treatments or anything like that. But let's get back to the vitamin D, shall we? And we all know with thyroid disease, vitamin D is really tricky. Many of us have low vitamin D. I had low vitamin D for years. And even though I live in hot environments, the last 7 years in Australia, I lived in the northwest of Western Australia, and it was extremely hot. You don't go out in the heat. Here in Bangkok, you don't go out in the heat. And I've become very Thai, and I have an umbrella which has UV blockout in it, which I keep in my bag. So quite often when you're out and about and you're in the stinking sun, because it is so hot here, the umbrella goes up. So you're cutting out that UV light that we need. Our hormones need it. And that's where our vitamin D comes from. So I've been taking vitamin D for quite some time, knowing this from that perspective, but I had no idea how much of an impact it had on my hair. And many of us don't. Many of us just go, it's our thyroid, full stop. I don't believe in full stops. I'm always one to dive a little bit deeper. So what does vitamin D do for our hair? Let's look at that. I bet you didn't know, because I didn't, that we have vitamin D receptors in our hair follicles, right? So that's how much our hair needs vitamin D. Vitamin D3 supports our hair growth cycle in the growth phase. So we have a cycle in our hair of growth and dormancy and then letting go and starting again. But in the growth phase, we need the vitamin D3. Did you know that? I sure didn't. Vitamin D deficiency is directly linked to alopecia. So that kind of tells you everything you need to know right there, right? And with thyroid disease, if you're watching this because you're hypothyroid, our D3 absorption is directly affected. So that's why most of us have low vitamin D levels across our lifetime. It's one of the supplements next to selenium that I would recommend. Okay, always. It's just like, take your vitamin D, because most of us are very sun aware, and very much it's always in Australia. I grew up with slip, slop, slap, slip on a t-shirt, slop on the sunscreen, slap on a hat. That was the slogan all my life, right? And so we do this to protect ourselves from the UV, but we actually need the UV to convert the vitamin D in our skin. So it's tricky. That's the very reason I will now always take vitamin D. Plus, a doctor told me recently, if you're on the high keto, carnivore kind of way of life, which is what has improved my thyroid, I also have lipedema, it's improved a lot of things for me. It keeps my weight off, I feel good, I feel energetic. So that kind of a lifestyle or way of eating requires you to take vitamin D3 and K2. It's really important though that you get the vitamin D3 with the K2. This is one that I've bought here in Bangkok because I ran out of my Australian one. And because the vitamin K2 drives the calcium to where it needs to be in our body. Without that, it could settle and calcify in hair follicles and places that causes further hair loss and other issues in the body like plaque and so on. So it's really important that you take one that has the K2 in it also. And on that, there's different kinds of K2, vitamin K2. So the one that you're looking for is MK-7, very specific. Even in the Thai language, it always says on the back of the bottle whether it has what form of K2 is in the supplement. All right, so always check that. So there are a lot of things that can cause hair loss with thyroid disease. Inflammation in its own right. Thyroid disease is an inflammatory disease, so that's like something that you always have to get on top of. If you have hair loss issues, stop dyeing your hair. For years, since I was 30 and I found my first grey hairs due to thyroid disease, right? I have been dyeing my hair. For the last, I'm going to say 10 years, I was dyeing my hair with an organic product from Denmark in Europe. And I was going and seeing an organic hairdresser to have this done. And I needed to do it every 3 to 4 weeks because the grey, you can see how white some of it is, was coming through in my natural, well, it wasn't natural anymore, brown hair colour. But when I stopped dyeing my hair grew quicker and faster than it's ever done in its lifetime. So even though it was organic, I have to wonder, faffing around with your hair with all the different products that we use. And I have to say here, because of the frizziness of living in this humid environment, I've been using all the defrizzing agents and that sort of thing, which is just not good for us from a hormonal and endocrine perspective. But the less we can do with our hair, the better. And I know it's a big call letting yourself go grey, but here's my reasoning here. We tend to avoid going grey because A, we think we're going to look older, fair, and B, we think it's not going to suit us, right? In fact, my mother-in-law said to me, oh, no, that won't suit you, right? And she, at 83, still dyes her hair, but I didn't want to be hijacked by that. Knowing that we were moving here to Bangkok, I was like, oh, I don't want to have to find a hairdresser. I don't want to have to go every 3 to 4 weeks. That was fine in Australia. That was fine while we had that kind of money. You know, my husband's retired now, so there was a lot of different factors involved in me sort of deciding, no, I don't want to dye my hair anymore. But I didn't realize how much of an impact not dyeing my hair would have on the growth of it. So if you're dyeing your hair because you're trying to cover it up or make it look better or thicker or all of those things, I highly encourage you to go natural, right? And just see what happens. Because what happened when I went grey, suddenly all these people started saying to me, oh, you look younger. Oh, that really suits you. I had to remind my mother-in-law, you told me that wouldn't suit me. She goes, oh, no. Right? But you will only get given the kind of hair, I think, or the colour of hair that suits your complexion. I'm sure of it, right? That's why we get given certain colours. It all matches. So we've got to trust that whatever grey, white, or whatever you're meant to be as you get older is going to match what is meant to match your skin colour and all of that kind of thing. It's just about stepping into it. A couple of times I've thought, oh, I'm going to go back to dyeing my hair because I've found the same organic colour here at certain hairdressers. But again, I know I would be tied to going to the hairdresser every 3 weeks. And that will be costly, right? Which means I have to work more, and I don't want to work more. So I'm really happy for the most part with the colour of my hair. And in fact, I went after my surgery and I had my hair washed and blow waved here because I couldn't get in the shower. Cost a whole 20 Australian dollars to do that. And the lady that did it, the hairdresser that did it, she kept saying to me, oh, hair colour, so pretty. We try to, what was she trying to say? She said, we try to copy that. People come in and want the grey look now. So I was like, oh, thank you. So just trust you'll get what you're meant to get. But if it comes to the growth, and how quickly it grows, if you're not taking vitamin D, I would get onto it. I used to use in Australia a bioceuticals one, and you can get bioceuticals in most Western countries. And I used a spray. And because vitamin D is fat soluble, you need to have it with either some kind of fat meal, a meal with fat in it, because that's what it needs to absorb in the body. But if you get a spray, the spray I had olive oil in it, which is why it needs to be good quality. You can't go buy the cheapest version because it won't be good quality olive oil. It will be some version of a seed oil, which is inflammatory to us, so that it will be pointless doing that. And spray. Once a day, spray, and keep it where you will use it. Okay, I keep my supplements on, the Bioceuticals one looks like this. This is actually the B12, but the Bioceuticals one is D3 and K2 like this. But I keep it on my desk because I'm here every day, and that's what reminds me to take my supplements. And I know for many of us, and after my lower body lift, it took me ages to get back to taking my supplements because they weren't somewhere that I had them in the cupboard, because I'd put them away knowing I couldn't take them for a few weeks. So I always put your supplements somewhere where it's front and center and you go, oh, have I had that today? Okay. So that's my big tip when it comes to supplements, because we all forget that sort of thing. And definitely get your vitamin D checked when you're having your thyroid tests, which you should be having at least yearly, unless it's a little bit unstable. So when I moved countries, different environment, different bacteria, different, stress load, all of that impacts your thyroid levels. I've been having tests every 3 months to keep an eye on it. And I have had to reduce my dose 4 times now, which is why I keep checking every 3 months, right? But at least once a year, you need to be adding a vitamin D test to those tests, because that will impact your thyroid levels and it will impact your hair, which is the whole topic of this little bit rambly video. But it's really, really important that you understand this. And I've told a few people in my life who I know suffer from hair loss. And every time I come back, and I came back and said, this is a thing. This is definitely a thing, because it was a really accidental, enforced experiment this time round. And, no, I must get around to that. No, if you've got hair loss in any way, or your hair bothers you in any way, or it's not growing fast enough for you, or it's just not growing at all, it's falling out, and that's it, there's no growth, vitamin D. D3 and K2, the MK-7 version of K2. Trial it for 3 months. Trial it for 1 bottle. Trial it for one spray. These sprays, they last ages because it's just one spray in the mouth. Easier to digest. Most of us have digestive disturbances, and so I find anything that I can take in liquid form so much better, because it's absorbed better. We can bypass the digestive system. So have a go at that. Tell me your experience below, because hair loss is one of the heartbreaking symptoms of thyroid disease, but it may not actually be the thyroid that's causing it.